Ignoring her the right way is not about being cruel, childish, or trying to break her emotionally. That is where most men misunderstand the whole game. They think ignoring a woman means disappearing with anger, acting cold, posting fake happiness, or pretending they do not care while secretly waiting for her to notice. But that kind of silence is weak because it still comes from need. It is not silence from power. It is silence from pain wearing a mask. The real power of ignoring her the right way begins when your silence is not used as revenge, but as a return to yourself. You stop reacting because your peace is more important than proving a point. You stop chasing because your dignity is more valuable than temporary attention. You stop explaining because you finally understand that a woman does not respect the man who keeps negotiating his own worth every time she gives him less effort. Here is the dark truth most men do not want to hear. When you are always available, always replying fast, always fixing the tension, always trying to keep the connection alive, you become emotionally predictable. And predictable attention slowly loses weight. She may still like you, she may still enjoy your presence, but deep inside, she begins to feel that your energy has no boundary. She knows you will return. She knows you will explain. She knows you will forgive too quickly. She knows you will keep showing up even when her effort becomes lower than yours. And the moment someone feels they can have your attention without respecting it, your value starts to drop in their mind. Not because you are not valuable, but because you are giving access like it has no price. That is why ignoring her the right way works so powerfully. It interrupts the pattern. It removes the emotional reward she was receiving from your constant reaction. It forces space where there used to be pressure. It creates contrast where there used to be predictability. Suddenly, the man who used to fill every silence is no longer filling it. The man who used to chase clarity is no longer begging for it. The man who used to bend his rhythm around her mood is now moving with his own rhythm. And that shift is felt before it is understood. But listen carefully. This is not about manipulating her. It is about mastering yourself. Because the strongest silence is not the silence that says, "I want you to suffer." It is the silence that says, "I respect myself too much to keep rewarding imbalance." When a man ignores from anger, he looks wounded. When a man ignores from confidence, he becomes unreadable. When a man ignores from ego, he creates drama. When a man ignores from self-respect, he creates curiosity, tension, and a quiet emotional mirror she cannot avoid. In this video, you are going to learn why ignoring her the right way works, how to do it without looking bitter, how to make your absence clean instead of childish, and why silence becomes powerful only when it comes from a man who has options, purpose, standards, and emotional control. Because when you stop giving your attention to someone who is not respecting it, you do not just change how she sees you. You change how you see yourself. Before we start, I want to say something about the quizzes. I see many of you watching but not participating. Don't just watch. Prove you understood. Choose your answer and demonstrate the mindset you're building. These aren't entertainment, they're daily training. Engage consistently and you'll see the difference. Part number 1. Ignore the pattern, not the person. The first thing you must understand is that ignoring her the right way does not mean you suddenly treat her like she is worthless. That is not power. That is emotional revenge. The right way is much more controlled and much more effective. You ignore the pattern, not the person. You are not trying to destroy her confidence, punish her feelings, or make her beg for your attention. You are simply refusing to keep feeding a pattern that makes you smaller. If she only replies when she is bored, if she becomes warm when you pull away, but cold when you care, if she gives you attention in small pieces just to keep you attached, then your silence is not cruelty. It is correction. It tells the situation without drama that your energy is no longer available for confusion. Most men fail here because they make ignoring too emotional. They want her to feel the pain immediately. They want her to notice the distance. They want her to ask, "Why are you acting different?" But the moment your silence becomes a performance, it loses its power. She can sense when you are ignoring her to get a reaction. She can feel when your absence is secretly begging to be noticed. That kind of ignoring still belongs to her because your whole strategy is built around her response. The real version is different. You pull back because the energy is imbalanced, and even if she never reacts, you still win because you have protected your peace. Think of it like this. If someone keeps knocking on your door only when they need something, you do not need to hate them. You simply stop opening the door every time. That is what controlled ignoring means. You remain respectful, but you stop overgiving. You remain calm, but you stop over-explaining. You remain mature, but you stop rewarding behavior that leaves you drained. This creates a powerful psychological contrast. Before, she may have felt that your attention was automatic. Now, she starts feeling that your attention has conditions. Not toxic conditions, but standards. And this is where the shift begins. When a woman realizes you are not ignoring her because you are weak, angry, or broken, but because you are centered enough to protect your value, she experiences your absence differently. It does not feel like childish silence. It feels like a boundary. It makes her wonder why the old access is gone. It makes her rethink the pattern she thought would always work. But more importantly, it forces you to become the man who no longer confuses being kind with being endlessly available. Part number 2. Remove the reward she gets from your reaction. The second reason ignoring her the right way works so powerfully is because it removes the reward she was getting from your reaction. Most men think attention only means compliments, messages, calls, and affection. But attention can also be emotional reaction. When she acts distant and you become nervous, that is attention. When she replies late and you question her, that is attention. When she becomes cold and you start trying harder to warm her back up, that is attention. Even when you get angry, jealous, or disappointed, she can still feel that her behavior has moved something inside you. And once someone realizes they can move your emotions whenever they want, your calm loses authority. This is why your reaction can become the prize without you noticing. She may not even be doing it consciously, but every time you overreact to her distance, you confirm that her silence still has power over you. Every time you chase after a dry reply, you teach her that she can lower her effort and still receive more from you. Every time you explain your feelings to someone who is giving you less respect than before, you make your emotional energy too available. The pattern becomes dangerous because she starts receiving proof of your attachment without needing to invest equally. She gets your concern, your questions, your energy, your long paragraphs, and your desire to fix the connection while giving only a small amount back. Ignoring her the right way breaks that reward system. You do not attack. You do not complain. You do not announce that you are pulling back. You simply stop giving emotional payment to behavior that does not deserve it. If she is cold, you do not panic. If she is inconsistent, you do not become a therapist trying to diagnose her mood. If she disappears, you do not fill the empty space with desperate proof that you are still there. You let the silence breathe. You let the imbalance reveal itself. You let her feel what happens when your energy is no longer automatically available. And this is where the psychology becomes powerful. People often value what stops being guaranteed. Not because you are playing games, but but because access without boundaries becomes invisible. When your attention was always there, she could relax inside it. When your reaction was predictable, she could control the emotional temperature. But when you stop reacting, she loses the feedback she was used to receiving. Suddenly, she has to face the quiet question. Why is he not trying like before? That question creates tension, and tension creates reflection. The key is to stay clean. Do not remove the reward with anger. Remove it with dignity. Because when you stop reacting from pain and start moving from self-respect, your silence becomes stronger than any message you could send. Part number 3. Make your absence feel clean, not cruel. The third rule of ignoring her the right way is learning how to make your absence feel clean, not cruel. This is where the difference between a high-value man and an emotional man becomes very clear. An emotional man disappears with bitterness, hoping she suffers, hoping she checks his stories, hoping she feels guilty, hoping she comes back with fear in her chest. But even if that works for a moment, it creates the wrong kind of attraction. It creates drama, not respect. It creates tension, not admiration. It creates a game where both people become more proud, more guarded, and more addicted to proving who cares less. That is not power. That is two wounded egos pretending to be strong. Clean absence is different. Clean absence has no noise around it. You do not insult her. You do not post indirect messages. You do not send cold one-word replies just to show that you are hurt. You do not block her impulsively, then unblock her to see if she noticed. You simply step back from the energy that is no longer healthy for you. Your tone stays respectful. Your life stays moving. Your confidence stays quiet. And because your absence is not full of emotional poison, it becomes harder for her to dismiss it as insecurity. She cannot easily say, he is just angry because you are not acting angry. She cannot say, he is trying to hurt me because you are not attacking. She is left with something much more powerful to feel: your standards. This is why clean absence works so deeply. It creates a mirror without shouting. When you stop overgiving, she begins to feel the space where your effort used to be. When you stop reacting, she begins to notice the calm where your pressure used to live. When you stop chasing, she begins to understand that your attention was not something she could keep receiving while giving low effort. And because you did not turn it into a dramatic fight, the silence feels more mature. It feels like a man quietly choosing himself, not a boy trying to punish someone. But clean absence must be real. You cannot disappear while secretly hoping every second that she comes back. You cannot call it self-respect if your whole inner world is still centered on her reaction. Real clean absence says, I wish you well, but I will not lose myself trying to be valued. That energy is rare, and when a woman feels rare energy, she does not forget it easily. Part number 4. Let silence create the contrast she cannot ignore. The fourth reason ignoring her the right way works so powerfully is because silence creates contrast, and contrast is what wakes up the mind. When you are always available, always replying, always explaining, always trying to keep the connection alive, your presence becomes normal. Even if you are a good man, even if your attention is sincere, even if your intentions are rare, too much access can make your value feel ordinary. This is not because women are evil or because kindness is weak. It is because the human mind often notices what changes more than what stays constant. If your effort is always there, she may stop feeling its weight. But when that effort suddenly becomes limited, calm, and controlled, the mind begins to ask questions. Why is he different? Why is he not chasing? Why does his silence feel stronger than his words? That is where the shift begins. This is why the right kind of ignoring is not about disappearing forever. It is about changing the emotional rhythm. Before, she may have known that if she became distant, you would move closer. If she replied late, you would try harder. If she acted unsure, you would become more available. That pattern makes her feel emotionally safe in a dangerous way, because she learns she can lower her effort while your effort rises. But when you stop doing that, the whole pattern breaks. Now distance does not pull more energy from you. Coldness does not make you perform. Silence does not make you beg for clarity. Instead, your calm distance becomes a quiet announcement. Access to me is connected to respect. The power of contrast is that it makes her compare two versions of you. The first version was available, warm, present, and perhaps too easy to reach. The second version is still respectful, but no longer emotionally open without balance. This difference forces her to feel the value of what she had been receiving. And sometimes, only when your attention is no longer guaranteed, does she understand how much emotional comfort, validation, and stability you were giving her. Your absence becomes a mirror. It does not scream. It does not accuse. It simply shows her what the connection feels like when you stop carrying it alone. But here's the part most men must understand. The contrast only works if you do not ruin it with emotional weakness. If you pull back today and then send 3 messages tomorrow, you teach her that your silence was just panic. If you ignore her for 2 days but keep posting indirect messages, you show her that she is still controlling your attention. If you act calm but secretly explode when she finally replies, you prove that the calm was never real. The contrast must be steady. Your silence must match your behavior. Your behavior must match your standards. Your standards must match the man you are becoming. When silence creates contrast, it makes her feel the difference between having your full attention and having limited access to your energy. That feeling is powerful because it does not come through pressure. It comes through absence. And sometimes, absence teaches a lesson that words could never deliver. Part number 5. Do not reward her return too quickly. The 5th rule is simple, but it requires discipline. When she comes back after your silence, do not reward her return too quickly. This is where most men destroy the power they just built. They finally stop chasing. They finally stop reacting. They finally create distance. And then, the moment she sends one small message, they become wide open again. She says, "Hey," and suddenly he forgets the confusion, the disrespect, the mixed signals, the cold replies, the late responses, and the emotional imbalance that made him pull back in the first place. He replies fast. He becomes warm again. He explains everything. He shows excitement. And without realizing it, he teaches her that all she has to do is return for 1 second, and the old access comes back completely. That is why you must understand the difference between welcoming effort and rewarding a pattern. If she returns with real effort, maturity, and consistency, you do not need to punish her. You can be calm, polite, and open at a controlled pace. But if she returns casually with the same lazy energy only to check if you are still available, then you must not give her the full version of you immediately. You observe first. You let her show whether she is coming back with respect or just curiosity. Because sometimes a woman does not return because she suddenly values you deeply. Sometimes she returns because your silence removed the attention she was used to receiving, and she wants to know if she still has access. This does not mean you act rude or cold. It means you stop giving premium attention to low-effort behavior. If she sends a simple message, answer simply. If she brings real warmth, meet it slowly. If she avoids accountability and acts like nothing happened, do not rush to make everything comfortable for her. Your calm distance should say without bitterness, I am not angry, but things are not exactly the same. That quiet difference is powerful because it makes her feel that your attention is no longer automatic. She must meet you with better energy if she wants better access. The strongest men do not use silence to create a dramatic comeback. They use silence to reset the standard. When she returns, the question is not, did she text me again? The question is her behavior different now? Because a message is easy, consistency is rare. A sudden return means nothing if the pattern remains the same. So stay grounded. Let her earn the warmth again through effort, not just through presence. That is how ignoring her the right way becomes powerful. It does not only make her notice your absence, it teaches her that your presence has value. Part number 6. Replace emotional availability with controlled access. The 6th rule is to replace emotional availability with controlled access. This is where ignoring her the right way becomes more than silence. It becomes a complete shift in how you allow people to experience you. Many men think the only two options are to be fully available or completely gone, but that is not true. A high-value man does not disappear every time something feels uncomfortable. And he does not overextend himself every time a woman gives him a little attention. He learns controlled access. He decides how much energy a situation deserves based on respect, consistency, and emotional balance. That is why his attention feels powerful. It is not cheap. It is not desperate, and it is not given without awareness. Emotional availability becomes dangerous when it has no filter. If she is distant and you still give her your full warmth, your full attention, your full emotional support, and your full curiosity, you are teaching her that her behavior does not affect her access to you. She can be cold and still receive the best version of you. She can be inconsistent and still enjoy your stability. She can pull away and still feel your energy waiting behind the door. That creates imbalance. And once imbalance becomes normal, respect starts to fade quietly. Not because you are a bad man, but because you are making your presence too easy to keep. Controlled access changes this. If she invests, you invest. If she respects your time, you give time. If she communicates clearly, you communicate clearly. If she becomes distant, your energy becomes measured. If she plays with confusion, you step back from confusion. This is not revenge. This is emotional intelligence. You are not trying to hurt her. You are simply refusing to keep giving full access to someone who is only offering partial effort. That kind of discipline makes you harder to take for granted because your presence now has a standard attached to it. And this is why it works so powerfully. A woman may enjoy a man who is always available, but she respects a man who knows when to limit access. There is a psychological weight in a man who can be warm without being needy, interested without being attached, kind without being weak, and silent without being bitter. He does not have to announce that he has changed. His rhythm shows it. He no longer rushes to reply just because she appeared. He no longer gives deep emotional conversations to someone giving shallow effort. He no longer makes himself endlessly open to someone who has not proven emotional care. Controlled access makes your attention feel earned again, And when your attention feels earned, your absence becomes meaningful. Your presence becomes valuable, and your silence becomes something she cannot easily dismiss. Part number 7. Let her feel the consequence without you explaining it. The 7th rule is to let her feel the consequence without you explaining it. Because the moment you explain every consequence, you weaken the lesson. Most men do the opposite. They pull back, but then they want to announce why. They say, "I'm not going to keep trying if you act like this." They say, "You'll miss me when I'm gone." They say, "I'm matching your energy now." But these lines often reveal too much. They show that the man is still emotionally attached to her reaction. He is not simply applying a standard. He is trying to make sure she notices the standard. And when you need someone to notice your boundary for the boundary to feel real, it means you are still depending on their response. The strongest consequence is quiet. It is not a punishment. It is a natural result. If she gives low effort, she receives less access. If she ignores you, she loses the comfort of your constant attention. If she plays hot and cold, she no longer gets the privilege of your emotional stability whenever she wants it. You do not need to make a speech about it. You simply let your behavior become the message. This is powerful because it feels mature. It does not put you in the position of a man begging to be understood. It places you in the position of a man who has already understood enough. And this is where the psychology becomes deeper. People often dismiss words, but they feel changes in access. She may ignore a paragraph, but she will notice the absence of your usual energy. She may pretend not to care about your explanation, but she will feel when your attention no longer rushes toward her. She may act calm on the outside, but internally, the pattern she expected from you has been interrupted. The old version of you gave her comfort after confusion. This version gives her distance after disrespect. That difference teaches more than any emotional message ever could. But remember, your goal is not to make her suffer. Your goal is to stop protecting her from the natural result of her behavior. If she values you, the distance will make her reflect. If she does not value you, the distance will reveal the truth faster. Either way, you gain clarity. You stop living inside the exhausting question of, how do I make her understand? And you start living inside a stronger truth. I do not need to explain my worth to someone who keeps acting like it is optional. Ignoring her the right way works so powerfully because it changes the emotional contract without begging, shouting, or explaining. Before, she may have felt that your attention was guaranteed. She may have felt that your reaction was predictable. She may have felt that distance from her would automatically pull more effort from you. But when you stop rewarding inconsistency, when you stop feeling every silence, when you stop giving full access to someone who gives partial effort, the whole energy changes. You are no longer the man trying to convince her to value you. You become the man who values himself enough to stop negotiating with disrespect. And that is the part most men miss. The goal is not to ignore her so she suffers. The goal is to stop suffering just because she is inconsistent. The goal is not to make her chase you like a game. The goal is to stop chasing a pattern that keeps making you smaller. The goal is not to become cold, cruel, or emotionally unavailable forever. The goal is to become controlled enough to know when your warmth is deserved, when your attention is being respected, and when your silence is the healthiest answer. A man who ignores from pain still looks controlled by her. A man who ignores from ego still looks childish. But a man who ignores from self-respect becomes different. His silence does not feel like punishment. It feels like a boundary. His distance does not feel like insecurity. It feels like direction. His calm does not feel fake. It feels earned. And when a woman feels that kind of energy, she understands that this man is not easy to emotionally manage. He can care without chasing. He can want without begging. He can be warm without becoming weak. He can step back without turning bitter. This is why your silence must always be clean. Do not use it to manipulate. Use it to protect your peace. Do not use it to make her feel worthless. Use it to remind yourself that your attention has value. Do not use it to create drama. Use it to remove yourself from drama. Because the moment your silence becomes rooted in self-respect, it stops being a trick and becomes a standard. So when she pulls away, becomes cold, ignores your message, or treats your attention like something she can pick up and drop whenever she wants, do not panic. Do not perform. Do not write emotional paragraphs trying to force her to understand. Step back calmly. Let her feel the space. Let the pattern reveal itself. Let her show whether she can meet your standard or only miss your attention. And remember this: the strongest silence is not the silence that tries to control her. It is the silence that proves she no longer controls you.